Things just keep building up perfectly for the Panthers. After a slow start in a joint practice with the Jaguars, the Panthers seemingly turned things around as the day progressed. What's going on, guys? It is Tanner Blue, Carolina Panthers Digest. Hope you were doing well. Happy Wednesday evening. Do apologize for getting the video out a little bit later today than normal, but nonetheless, guys, before we get into it, you know the drill. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. So far, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. That is the goal before we get to the regular season. So thanks to everyone so far who has subscribed, commented. Really appreciate it. You guys said some nice things in the comments saying that you're looking at me for Panthers news, and that really means a lot. So I do appreciate that. So the Panthers today, on Wednesday at the time of recording this, had a joint practice with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was up and it was down. So to begin practice, if you've kept up with any articles or anything on Twitter or any of the reaction anywhere that you get your Panthers news, you would likely see that the Panthers offensively and defensively struggled in the first half of this joint practice. We're talking the offense, again, looking a bit sluggish and slow. And then also at the same time, the defense just giving up way too many big plays and things like that, especially to tight ends. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and kind of what was some of the good and some of the bad. Because on the other side, it seemed like once, we kind of got some of that bad stuff out of the way, we were able to clean it up in the offense. Specifically, two players really were connecting, looking better. In the defense and the offensive line was able to do a much better job than the first half of this joint practice. And again, I want to clarify, it is a joint practice. I'm not quite sure what you're getting here. It is live action, but are you running your best stuff? It's very similar to a preseason game in a way. So let's get into the article and see what we have. This is an article from our friends over at Yahoo Sports. It is the good and not so good from the Panthers joint practice with the Jaguars. And Mr. Zach Roberts, credit to him, he is the author. He put together an article. I want to go through some of the tweets from a Panthers beat reporter over there, The Observer, I believe. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at some of the good and some of the bad. So these tweets here from Alex Zietlow over at The Observer. Good. Bryce Young to Tetairoa McMillan. As you can see here in the tweet, the Panthers offense has come alive in the second half of practice. Let me rephrase. The Bryce Young, Tetairoa McMillan has come alive. Jags unleash a blitz. Bryce Young stared unblocked rusher in the face and lofts it to McMillan for a red zone touchdown. So that is great to hear. That connection was really something that started to blossom as the season progressed last year. And you could see that a lot of times Bryce, he was comfortable with T-Mac because he felt like he could just throw the ball up and get things done. So very good to see that connection still alive very well here this early in the season. And a little bit underneath it says, with Jonathan Brooks, Darren Waller, and Jalen Coker fully healthy, the Panthers now have more options on offense, but that won't slow down the Bryce Young to Tetairoa McMillan connection. That was on full display as the two helped bring a totally dormant offense alive in the second half of the joint practice. If not for them, this would have been ugly. So kudos to those two guys for really picking up the offense. It is still, in my opinion, a bit concerning to see the slower start to the offense, but nonetheless, we're going to see how things continue to play out. As we continue on the article, not everything was great, so let's take a look at some of the bad that we got in this situation. That's something that we already had that was good. Let me switch it over to something that was bad. The not so good, the 2-minute drill. An underwhelming 2-minute drill for both Panthers and Jaguars. So Panthers fans were not alone. The Jaguars involved in this. Jaguars go 3 and out, 2 pass breakups. Panthers go 3 and out, including a Bryce Young sack. Always nice to see. And that's the conclusion of practice. Pressers following. So the Panthers were in pretty good tempo situations last year. It seemed to help Bryce Young get into a flow. Today, that was not the case. The Panthers closed practice with a 2-minute drill against the Jags, and they could not even make a first down. Young was sacked on a play 2, which is far from ideal. This is a bit concerning to look at. We saw what happened against the Bills with the situation with the interior offensive line really getting pressured and Bryce Young just not really having a lot of time. This is unfortunate to see. Again, I cannot confirm if Robert Hunt or Damian Lewis were practicing. Let me know in the comments below if they were. I apologize, I'm not aware. But even if they were, that's even worse. But if they weren't, I understand a little bit more. But this offensive line has got to protect Bryce Young. This is the only chance we really have at the offense succeeding is if Bryce Young is protected. Not everyone is still sold on Bryce Young in general, so to give him the best opportunity to produce as a quarterback, he's going to have a clean pocket. I know everything can't be on the offensive line. You do have to make plays from the quarterback position, but when your guy has no time, it is a tough pill to swallow for the offense. So a bit concerning to see that kind of carry over from that Buffalo game a few days ago, unfortunately. But nonetheless, there was a few more good things to come from the offensive line. While it might not have been from the scrimmage portion of offense versus defense, we did get some good stuff from the rookies and other guys. So let's take a look. Apparently the offensive line reps in one-on-ones was quite good. I can't play the video here, but Rasheed Walker with a nice rep here against Trayvon Walker, former first overall pick. So the offensive line, at least in the first half, was unable to provide Bryce Young any time to throw. That's not good. It's not good at all. But in individual drills, there were several encouraging reps against Jaguars rushers who do have some very good rushers on their team. Monroe Freeling held up well against Josh Hines Allen, a very solid rusher, and Rasheed Walker put in a good rep against Trayvon Walker. That bodes well at least. So while you didn't get it in the game or the 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 scrimmage there, you did get some solid reps there at the end when it comes to the one-on-one. So it is nice to see Monroe Freeling look the part so far in his NFL journey. I know it hasn't been much, but it's been promising, which is important. But when you look at some of the other guys on the interior, they've got to be able to put that together. But when you're looking at your two tackles, at least so far from what we've seen, that has been a positive. So I'll take what we can get, but we got to sharp the inside of this thing. And unfortunately, we do have one last bad thing. Not so good tight end coverage. Mike K from the Charlotte Observer tweeting this here. Unsurprisingly, Brenton Strange and Nate, I'm not going to pretend to know how to say that, are having a day against the Panthers. The Panthers were absolutely dreadful against tight ends last season. One would think the inclusion of Devin Lloyd might help. That's apparently a band-aid solution to a bullet hole. The tight ends for Jacksonville, who with all due respect are not exactly elite, feasted on the Panthers defense all day. It could be a deeper problem than personnel. This is unfortunate to see because if you've been a Panthers fan for the last few seasons, you know exactly what Mike K is talking about. And this seems to unfortunately show that this is going to likely be an issue this season. Tight ends always seemingly have very good games against the Panthers, especially the elite tight ends. It just always seems like whatever coverage we're running, who's covering them, whatever it might be, you are finding tight ends wide open down the seams and just making huge chunk plays against this defense. It's no good to see. You would like to. Is it a personnel issue? I know the linebacker position isn't the most highly regarded in terms of talent. Yes, we do have Devin Lloyd now, but Trevor Wallace and some of those guys, leaving a bit to be desired. But again, the personnel, is that helping as well? Because we've seen time and time again where guys are running around open, especially at the tight end position. So that's going to be something that the Panthers are going to have to keep their eye on as the season progresses and we get into the regular season. So it looks like there's some good. It looks like there's a lot of good things to build on of, including the Bryce Young and Tetairoa McMillan, and then your two tackles are looking good. That is something to build upon and looks good. The bad, unfortunately, is still some things that we would imagine are still some of the things we saw last season. The interior, the offensive line struggling a bit, and then the coverage for tight ends just being a bit open. So we'll have to see where that progresses. We're very close to the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Friday, so we will see how the Panthers fare against them on the road. So that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, keep pounding. We'll see you on the next video.